What's up, everyone? Thank you for tuning in to another edition of Casual Highlights, where we strive to educate, inform, and inspire while having casual and conscious conversations in the world of sports. So, news just came out a couple hours ago. Sean Payton has resigned, retired. I don't say the word resigned from as being the head coach of the New Orleans Saints. Give you my raw reaction about that. He's done it for 15 years. Most winningest coach in franchise history. Took the franchise to a Super Bowl. Got their first road playoff win in franchise history. Has brought more value to the Saints organization than where it was before. And in life, thinking about this now, how we can connect this consciously, we're all called to leave a mark, leave something in a better place than it was before. I think about Boy Scouts. So anytime we would go on to camp out on Fridays and we would leave out on a Sunday, what we all do as scout people, we would all line up and we would line up and patrol the area because our goal was to make the area that we was in look better than what it was before. Leave the place better than what it was before. Everybody, if you're listening to this right now, if you're the word highlight is we're creating highlights. One of the things with highlights is you're creating life highlights. You want to leave the earth in a better place than it was before. You want to leave an impact, which leads me to Sean Payton. Sean Payton has left an impact where the organization is better than in a better position now than it was before. More people are talking about the Saints. Sean Payton made it to the playoffs many years, won a Super Bowl game, went to three NFC championship games, made the Saints' name respectable, made the mentality of bring the lunch pail to work daily, do your job, brought that mentality, that grind and that toughness to the Saints organization that they didn't have in the past. They may have had it, but it wasn't, the message wasn't pushed out clear enough. Came at a time when you didn't know if the city of New Orleans was going to bounce back and how the city of New Orleans was going to bounce back after Hurricane Katrina. Brought a quarterback who had a chip on his shoulder and had a lot to prove after injuring his shoulder in a champion in San Diego as a San Diego Charger named Drew Brees, and believed in him. And they took the Saints to heights that they had never been before. And when there was the notice out Sunday saying he's uncertain about his future, I put two and two together. I said, I think he's burnt out. I think he just wants to just rest and take a break. I know there's rumors out right now possibly saying, could he go to the Cowboys and coach? Could he go over here and coach in this particular area or not? I'm going to say that sometimes you just need a break. Sometimes you just need a mental break because that particular job as a coach, as leading not just the X's and O's of plays, but leading men, leading an organization of people, it takes a toll on the mind. It takes a toll on the body. It takes a toll sometimes on your health. And sometimes people just need a break, and he might just be burnt out. And he will always, I believe he's a Hall of Fame coach. I believe he's definitely a Saints Hall of Famer. Duh, we all know that. But I believe he's also, he will be in Canton. He should be in Canton to lead an organization from the pit to the palace. And the Saints' name holds weight right now as teams who are legit, especially when you're winning when you're going to the playoffs consistently in his era. I think he missed the playoffs maybe 5 or 6 times in his 15 years and was consistent and winning every year. The Superdome was packed out every year. And was innovative every year. And this past year probably was, if maybe was one game away, and had he had you go through 4 different quarterbacks, COVID, all these different things. if they didn't have the injury bug like they did this year, I think they would have made the playoffs again this year. So it's a lot. It is a lot to as a leader. I've never been a head coach. I don't, but I've led in other organizations, so I know what it's like to be burnt out. But let's look at the part here and what Sean has done and the great things as a sports fan. Now, I lived in the state of Louisiana. I lived in Baton Rouge. I went to college down there, and so I know how passionate the fans are of the Saints. And I'll tell you this: before I finalized and became, I had two teams at one time. I was a Saints fan and I was a Chiefs fan, and I read about the history of the Saints. When I was younger, I was into Legos, being a sports journalist, being a sports broadcaster. And for reading, I didn't like reading anything else but sports. So I would bring sports books from the library in elementary school, and I would read, and that's how I learned I got my comprehension up, was reading sports books. And one of the first books I read was about the New Orleans Saints, because I was born in Louisiana. But even though I grew up most of my life in the Midwest, I always had a connection with the Saints. I always had a connection, reading about Tom Dempsey and Archie Manning, and about the Dome Patrol, about Jim Moore being the head coach, about how they had all these years of they were just god awful. The Saints were just god awful, And then they started their years out at Tulane Stadium. Hank Stram, who won a Super Bowl with the Chiefs, came to New Orleans to coach and couldn't get it done. Just reading about all the different history of the Saints, and from when I was younger in Kansas City, I couldn't watch. If you heard my sports story, I couldn't watch the Saints we couldn't watch the Saints on TV. We had to watch the Saints. I had to, at the bottom ticker, and I would have to read the paper because I was a Saints fan. I had to go see certain pictures, and this in the World Wide Web was still pretty new. So I would have to go find, I had to wait for dial-up to go online to see, different stories about the Saints and about quarterback Jim Everett. I kept messing his name up and saying Jim Edwards when his name was Jim Everett. Then I watched Mike Dicker come in there, and that's when I really began to follow even more. They had a quarterback named Heath Schuler. Good. I'm going down that memory lane right now. Then Jim Haslett came in there, had a quarterback named Jeff Blake. But I was into the Saints as well as the Chiefs. So, and then when Sean Payton came in there and really took it to a different level, and I believe he's probably has gone as far as he can go with the Saints. Sometimes leaders can only go as far as they can go with certain organizations and certain teams. And also, but listen, living in Louisiana, a couple of things I realized. There's two big teams, sports pro teams, that people are passionate about. Majority is passionate about the Saints, but for every 10 people in Louisiana, maybe every three and 10 people are like Cowboy fans. I'm not saying it right, but you got a lot of Cowboy fans sprinkled in down there in Louisiana, and those battles will go back and forth. Cowboys this, Saints that. Cowboys this, Saints that. And so when I moved down there in '08, I was fully ingrained in the Kansas City mindset, and so I was a Chiefs fan. Even though I still had love for the Saints, I always kept it real about my Chiefs because I love, that's the only games I could watch growing up. I couldn't watch the Saints games because all it was on TV at the time was the Kansas City Chiefs. So that's when that really was my other boyhood team. And then I've kind of grew out of that, and then I'm like an officially Chiefs Kingdom. I've been about Chiefs Kingdom. I've been about this life since I was 7. I had 2 teams, and now it's pretty much just one, and then I still have love for the Saints. I have, when the Saints won the Super Bowl, I remember that night Tracy Porter sealed the game with the interception over the Indianapolis Colts. That ambush play to start the second half of Super Bowl 44. I remember all that like it was yesterday. And that stuff has stayed with me, has been ingrained in me, and I won't forget that. I won't forget that. But just from far, anytime I always wanted the Chiefs and the Saints to play each other in the Super Bowl. So I'm like, man, 2 of my favorite teams growing up, I want them to play each other. but they never played each other. Stupid refs from the doggone refs in that NFC Championship against the Rams. They jacked that up. That was part one. And then part two, D Ford was offsides against the Patriots, and that jacked us up right there too. So neither of them teams went in there. But anyway, back to Sean Payton. Congratulations, sir, on an outstanding career. I know this is not the end for Sean Payton. I think it's just a rest and a recharge and a reboot. And I believe he'll get back into coaching. Maybe we just have to see. Might not be this year, might not be next year. He might do a Bill Cowher. Bill Cowher, coached for years and has not been back in coaching in 13 years. And he always flirted with it and talked about it. But Bill Cowher never went back. So it'd be interesting to see what's next for Sean Payton. I know he'll be any restaurant Sean Payton goes to in New Orleans, he eating free. It's like Andy Reid up here in Kansas City. Any place Andy Reid, any barbecue he want, he getting free. Big Red get what he want. Sean Payton is gonna get what he wants. But anyway, Sean Payton resigns as the Saints coach. New people, they're saying Dennis Allen, Pete Carmichael. I'm trying to think. If the Saints was to get any coach, they need to get an offensive-minded coach. I know people talking about Bieniemy, but I was reminded by one of my colleagues, A.J. Jones. He's like, I wouldn't take that Saints job because really the offense is like a mess right now. The only thing you really got is a well, he didn't say this, but I'm adding to it. The only thing you really got right now is Alvin Kamara. That quarterback situation got to get together. And I was listening to other people. You got people who wanted to play for Payton because you're going to have free agents like Aaron Rodgers going to be a free agent. Russell Wilson, his contract, his issues in Seattle. They wanted to play in that type of offense in New Orleans, but now Sean Payton is not there. You got to bring in a strong offensive-minded coach who's going to want to play a certain type of style and make a certain type of play calling ability. So be interesting to see who will be the next coach of the Saints. But if I'm Gerald Benson and Mickey Loomis, is Mickey Loomis? See, I ain't followed the Saints in a while. My team is the Chiefs now, but I still have a love for the Saints. But if I'm them, I'm looking at an offensive-minded coach. And if you're going to get Eric, man, and I'm like AJ, man, you ain't got to go to New Orleans. You're going to need a strong offensive-minded coach. Pete Carmichael, because he's been under Sean Payton for years. So we'll just have to see what happens with that. This is Al High. Y'all know what it is. Thank you for tuning in. God is love and disrespect your senses.